Well, Dee, give us a little of your background while we're waiting for a few more folks to roll in, I hope. 'Cause,
Okay. Well, I have been a friend of Veterans for Peace for so long. I can't remember when I wasn't. Uh, my longest friend in the world is Jerry Condon, who
oh,
probably some of you know. Uh,
mhm.
he hails from San Mateo. You probably know
Correct.
that.
He's
And
got, I hope he doesn't have the same girlfriend.
I think you could be a talk show host, but
Uh-oh.
when uh, in terms of identification, I'm a member of the Advisory Council of Friends of Socialist China, and I'll be talking about some of that in connection with my book. I also am on the International Committee of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, focusing on the China Working Group. I've been active in one way or another in anti-war and anti-imperialist stuff for about 50 years, a little more, um, and uh, have recently, in the last several years, spent most of my time writing books. Befriending China is my most recent one. I also have a book called A Realistic Path to Peace, as well as a memoir called My Whirlwind Lives. And I'll show you some about all of that. Um, Most recently, as I've worked with Friends of Socialist China, I've visited China now 4 times in the last 2 years.
Wow.
And the book I'm going to tell you most about, Befriending China, is a product of those visits. Um, Aside from that, uh, I met Jerry Condon in Canada. Both of us were war resistors. And I was one of the editors of Amex Canada, the war resistor exile publication from 1968 to 74, when I actually returned from Canada, came to New York. My the draft refusal case against me was dropped on a technicality. I was free to travel and was basically assigned to coordinate a boycott of um, the clemency program that Gerald Ford initiated after he pardoned Richard Nixon way back in ancient history. I'm glad to see that some of you are almost old enough to remember that, just like I do. So I appreciate that. uh, and So I came back from Toronto to New York City in 1974 and have lived here ever since.
Oh,
Although I have done some traveling. In 1975, I made it my business to witness the Portuguese Carnation Revolution at that time. And
Mm.
then in the 80s, I spent 3 years in Nicaragua working closely with the Sandinistas as a consultant to the Sandinista newspaper Barricada. Aside from those things, my life uh, has been fairly normal. Work for a living. I worked as a teacher. I worked as a writing consultant or a publishing consultant at the UN Development Program after I got back uh, from Nicaragua. And uh, uh, During the U.S. invasion of Iraq, I became intensely active in the effort to stop that war. It's true that we didn't get it stopped, but we did mobilize millions of people, and that was a big deal for me. And It was at that time that I renewed and intensified a very close relationship with anti-war veterans, who I recognize as perhaps the most eloquent and powerful anti-warriors, precisely because they've seen firsthand what the war machine can do and how the lie machine works. Um, And all of my writing really has been focused on that, although the befriending China is something of a turn, as you'll discover. That's probably enough to get us started. I could go on. I'm married. I have uh, two grown-up kids who live in Florida, which they prefer, and I'm grandfather of two kids. I'll talk about some of the opportunities for all of our grandkids as I go into people-to-people peacemaking. And you should tell me if we should get started.
I guess so. I'm just kind of sad. I don't know. Maybe they got a big ball game going or something. We're really
There
low
is a
on.
game
Uh,
today. Some kind of
yeah, but we'll just go on ahead because we are recording it. So I guess a lot of these naughty people will say, "Oh, watch the recording." But
Yeah,
yeah, take it away, and it's all yours. And it sounds fascinating so far. I mean, we're
thank
all
you.
here for the kids. It's true. That's why we're doing what we're doing, basically, so we're not hated. Our memories are not spat upon us after we go. Like what did they do? They had the world.
Exactly.
They could have stopped all this. Well, we're
Yeah.
trying. So,
Well, we're definitely trying. Let me share my screen now, and I'll pull up a little slideshow that will keep me focused. Um, oh, here's Teresa
oh,
Camaranesi.
come in. Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah, it's our.
Okay,
She's
now
our
I'll share
city
my.
resident. She lives up by right by I'm calling it Central Park. It's not what do you call it? The park. Yeah, our big park in the city. Here comes some. Oh, Jeannie's here. Good.
Okay.
Both are San Francisco residents. Yeah.
Uh huh. All right. Now let's see if I can. All right. So I'm going to start with a kind of a overview. Uh, This is me. I'm focusing on my book, Befriending China. Subtitle is People to People Peacemaking. And as I said in the preview, people to people peacemaking is what we need to do and can do. Here's an image of the book in case you haven't seen it before. Uh, I had to go back to the printer and get a new cover with the 2025 Nonfiction Book Award, which came from a grouping headquartered just south of you in Palo Alto, the Nonfiction Authors Association. This cover provides an opportunity to see a little something. I'll focus first a little on my own little bio. And the bottom left, I'm a member of the Advisory Council of the Friends of Socialist China. Can you hear me okay?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. I also serve on the China East Asia Subcommittee of the International Committee of the DSA. Uh, Way back in the 60s and early 70s, I was an editor of MX Canada, published by U.S. war resistor exiles in Canada. And I came back, as I mentioned earlier, to the States in 1974 and have lived in New York ever since. Was a founding board member of the National Council for Universal Unconditional Amnesty. Uh, uh, I have worked at the UN after coming back from Nicaragua. In both places, I was a publishing consultant. It was more fun being a publishing consultant to the Sandinistas, I'll admit. So anyway, uh, as you can see on the bottom right, uh, Befriending China is one of my books. Another is A Realistic Path to Peace. But I'll focus on Befriending China. Just want to start with a little bit of blurb stuff about it. The purpose of this book is to show what modern life in China is really like and why the people of China overwhelmingly support their socialist system and the many ways that the world can benefit from the vision of peace. This blurb from Kyle Farana, I should mention that he and I did a promotion tour in the Bay Area this past summer. It went very well. And you can see Mike Wong, who you know is another endorser. He said it's a joy to read, and I just want you to know that. Um, Danny Haifeng may be familiar with some of you. He now has more subscribers uh, than some of the mainstream outlets. He has more than 500,000 subscribers on the Danny Haifeng show, and is co-founder of Friends of Socialist China. Um, and he says this book is a must read for those interested in what China's like on the ground and what we need to do to stop the warmongers threatening a war against China. Jody Evans is another person who many of you may know or know of as a co founder of Code Pink. She initiated my first tour, the China is Not Our Enemy tour of China back in late 2023. Um, I just pulled these little excerpts from the preface to the book by Carlos Martinez, who is the co-founder and editor of Friends of Socialist China, which is it's basically a website leading a movement. And the reason I took these excerpts was to give really flavor of the core message of the book. Without peace, nothing is possible. Maintaining peace is our greatest common interest and the most cherished aspiration of the people of all countries. Those are words of Chinese President Xi Jinping, who, unlike some people in this country, I think he's a really cool guy. And people in China regard him as a kind of a grandfather figure. Um, and this concept of ecological civilization has been intensified over the last really 12 years since Xi Jinping became the leader. And China now is the undisputed global leader in renewable energy, biodiversity protection, forestation, and green transport system. It also happens to make and sell more electric vehicles than any other country. And perhaps the bottom line is that for those of us who oppose war and love peace, China is really our ally and is on the right side of history. And rather than seeing it as an enemy, my message is that we should consider it as a partner in our global struggle for peace. Here on this screen, you can get an overview. Sorry to be so text heavy. I threw this together to keep me focused. I hope it works for you. This is a list of the chapters in my book. My favorite is the introduction, eye poppers and lie stoppers, and I'll give you a couple of points from that. I want to draw your attention to the fifth dig down, Eyewitness Xinjiang. It's a very important chapter in my book, and I do have a couple of quotes about it from the introduction. Basically, one of the reasons I was anxious to go to China was to see with my own eyes whether the official U.S. government position, first articulated by the inimitable Michael Pompeo, was true, and I found it totally false. There was no evidence at all either of oppression, let alone slavery, although I made it my business to get out where the cotton harvest was in full swing at that time, back in November of 23. And it was all being done with American made combines, mechanical harvesters. So that was a significant thing. There's more to say. Also want to highlight democracy and human rights, China versus the USA. I would say this chapter, if you wanted to put it in commercial terms, is worth the price of the book. It's a deeply researched look at how the country is run and how people participate. It's worth knowing that over 90% of Chinese, according to a Harvard study, are very happy with the government. And I could see why when I was there. And I'll tell you a bit more about that as we go along. Um, and other things that we see here. Why is the U.S. paranoid about China's role? I don't go into that much in this talk, but let me just tell you, uh, uh, in another book that I'm working on with others, uh, one of the chapters is China is turning the lights on in Africa, and it's really true. Uh, I'll just keep going. Um, for those of you who want to get your hands or your eyes or your ears on Befriending China, you'll notice that in addition to paperback, there is an audiobook version, and of course, there's also an ebook. And uh, it's possible to order the audiobook for $10, and when you do that, I'll send you the ebook for free. So it's such a deal. Before going further into Befriending China, I just want to highlight my most recent visit, which was uh, really over the Labor Day weekend. I left Kennedy Airport on August 24th and came back on September 5th. While I was there, I was able to witness, together with friends, China's 80th anniversary celebration of its victory over Japanese fascism, which was really quite an eye popper. It was kind of a sad comparison to um, uh, the Donald's July 4th celebration, the march that took place in Washington was a pale reflection of the amazing celebration that took place in Beijing. And this article, which focuses both on that 80th anniversary celebration as well as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit meeting, which took place the weekend before, was really uh, uh, historic, to put it bluntly, in terms of uh, the military parade. It made it clear that uh, uh, a war with China is a very bad idea. I don't like to focus on who would win and who would lose, because the chances are the whole world would lose. But uh, let it be said that China can defend itself, and it has a ton of friends out there. Um, I want to mention also one more book that's we just sent it to the production house prior to printing last week. It's a new book, collection of essays from the Friends of Socialist China, titled "China Changes Everything." This front cover that you see on the left has a background of the map where the Belt and Road Initiative has made significant inroads. And then you can see that if you start at the bottom, you can see this is actually a woman in southwest China carrying goods out of a cave. And by the way, that was happening until very recently, I'm sorry to say. The next picture up is a picture of the Three Gorges Dam, which is the world's largest dam and generates an amazing amount of electricity, as well as serving as a major flood controller on the upper Yangtze River, which is the second longest river in the world and cuts from the far west in Tibet in China all the way to Shanghai on the eastern coast of China. Next up is the now famous bullet trains that actually connect all the cities of China. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Little graphic that you see nestled on that upward arrow is BRICS, which, even though the symbol is small, the significance is enormous. BRICS is Changing the World in Fundamental Ways. One of the chapters in this book talks about how it is really changing how trade will happen among about 150 countries around the world, and really will break the uh, the steel grip of the dollar on world trade. There we see a few of the windmills that are now omnipresent across China, and together with the hydropower and the solar panels that you can see two pictures up, are rapidly making it possible for China to leave fossil fuels behind. A very big deal. That little graphic of DeepSeek, I think people probably know that China kind of shocked some of our good friends in Silicon Valley by coming up with a large language model that was both cooler and cheaper than what Silicon Valley had been able to do up to now. And the top picture is my favorite. It's just a bunch of country kids uh, in the rural part of of China, learning to read. And as simple as that may seem, it's one of the things that is transforming China. I don't think I'll go over everything on the right side, but I would like to mention that the contributors to this book read like a who's who of the progressive movement. You see Professor Gerald Horn, probably the most dynamic U.S. historian. Next to him is Jackie Luqman, who's the chair of the Black Alliance for Peace. Margaret Kimberly is the executive editor of the Black Agenda Report. Danny Haifong is my friend, and he's uh, the host of the Danny Haifong Show that now has 500,000 subscribers. KJ No is a Bay Area guy. Probably some of you are familiar with him as the anchor of the China Report, which you can see on Breakthrough News. He's about the smartest person I have ever met. So this book is lucky to have him. Radhika Desai is the convener of the International Manifesto Group. And you can see people that you may not have known before. I'm there. You didn't know me before. Kenneth Haben is a professor emeritus at, I believe it's New Mexico State University, and one of the co-founders, together with KJ No and Michael Wong of Pivot to Peace. Sarah Flounders is the secretary of Friends of Socialist China and a fairly well-known leader of the United Anti-War Coalition. Let me go on. So, at the risk of trying to make you think that you can find me pretty much anywhere, I'm showing you here an excerpt from my Patreon site, which is called Dee Knight's Books, Notes, and Chats. You might want to make a note of that, especially if you like uh, uh, seeing videos of articles, because I post a lot of them there. And there's an excerpt of the chapter that I have in China Changes Everything, which is leadership was the key in China's targeted poverty alleviation program. It
And
was
not to interrupt for a second, but maybe put that in the chat if you get a chance as well, just so folks can, if they want to record the chat, they'll have it for themselves without having to write it down.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Forgive me for being stuck right now in this frozen slideshow, and I'm going to stop it fairly soon. But it helps me, as you can see, it keeps me from saying and all the time. I just take a look and read what it says, and it helps me. This one, though, let me just tell you, was so amazing. I could go on all night. This was part of an invited visit to a party cadre school in Guiyang, which is the capital of the southwestern province of Guizhou, uh, a very, very mountainous province that really has been held back for generations by its remoteness. And it was really one of the focal areas of the targeted poverty alleviation program. And we got a close up seminar really on how they did it. And it was utterly amazing. Once again, I would say the story of the targeted poverty alleviation program is very, very worthwhile. It uh, essentially uh, helped half the Chinese population, about 800,000 people, lift themselves out of poverty, which may seem simple, but it wasn't simple at all. It involved literally millions of organizers going into very, very remote areas, living with the people who are isolated there, figuring out ways to a connect them to the internet, b connect them to the concrete infrastructure. Now, for example, in Southwest China, in Guizhou, they have 50 of the world's 100 highest bridges. Uh, I should have put a picture just so you could see, connecting them to the internet. Uh, in this communist led socialist country, it helps them uh, organize businesses so they can make money. It's all pretty amazing. I'll stop there, but it's worth a few more looks. Um, Here, even though this is far too much text, I want you to see that, first of all, this is the introduction called Eye Poppers and Lie Stoppers, Seeing is Believing in China. And it explains that I was invited as a delegate to a China Insight Global Insight Forum that took place in Guizhou, and we were able to uh, really witness up front what was going on in the countryside there, as well as participate with people from around the rest of the world. As luck was have it, I was the only delegate from the United States, uh, which was a fluke. But anyway, I was very glad to be there. One of the things that I discovered, and you can see this in the last paragraph here, is that the Chinese government wants to host 50,000 US students for study and exchange, and is offering bilingual programs at many Chinese universities. There's a footnote that is obscured by this block. I don't know if I can get it out, talking about scholarships, but I'll make sure that you can see that, because that could be a benefit to who knows how many grandkids here. A friend of mine, Philip, who lives in Berkeley, contacted me after a recent discussion and said his granddaughter wants to go. And that's happening in various places across the country. It's not a flood, it's not even a movement, but there are some opportunities there for special young people who could benefit not only from becoming thoroughly bilingual in both English and Chinese, but also benefiting from a university education that is world class, on a par with the best universities in this country. Here, I don't expect you to be able to read this, but this in the introduction, I talk about some of the surprises. Some are not really so surprising, like the Great Wall, but right not far from the Great Wall in Shanxi province, which is to the west of Beijing, uh, the it's almost like a Buddhist ghetto. There's Buddhist temples and grottos everywhere there. I found out that about 15% of Chinese are practicing Buddhists. And I was able to go into those temples and see these people kowtowing deeply and burning incense reverently, while the neighbors and family members waited patiently in line for their turn. You know, China is amazingly still quite a religious country. And the Chinese leaders emphasize melding these elements with Marxism and allowing for integration rather than rejection. It's quite interesting. And of course, this applies also to Islam, which I devote a whole chapter to in Befriending China. Uh, One of the things also that's just fun to see is how avid Chinese tourists are. I saw gray haired grandmas climbing the Great Wall with daughters and grandkids in tow, looking determined to make it to the top, which I could not do, but they did. So uh, I think the nutrition is better there. Uh, People may know, but if you don't, it's worth knowing that life expectancy in China has now surpassed life expectancy in the United States uh, by a hair. You know, they're at about 78 and a half, and we're at about 77 and a half, something like that. One of the things that I loved about my visit was the ultra modern look in the cities: skyscrapers, fancy shopping malls, a buzzing street life, super clean subways in every city with several million residents, ultra fast bullet trains connecting all these cities. For example, I've now taken the bullet train between Shanghai and Beijing several times. It's a 2 hour flight, and you figure an hour each way to and from the airports, and it's a 4 hour train ride. And the train ride is cheaper, much more convenient, and really quite enjoyable. And by the way, you can take a bullet train from from Shanghai, for example, to the far west, to the capital of Xinjiang, and and people do it. Here's something that I found interesting in Kashgar, the ancient city on the old Silk Road. It's very close to the border of China and Pakistan, and there's a cobblestone engraved there in on the sidewalk, saying that it's a halfway point between Shanghai and Paris, 5,000 kilometers each way. It's just a sign of the size of China, and in fact how really close it is to Western Europe. There's a lot more to be said. One of the things about these trains I want to mention is that they're literally everywhere. And in addition, it also has the world's longest urban rail transit system, about almost 7,000 miles of subway track, as we would call it in New York City. And of course, they're much nicer than the New York City subway. They're certainly as nice as the BART, but they go many more places. uh, Wrapping up, or almost wrapping up, I want to focus on this slogan that I invented, that befriending China is defending China. Um, and a symbol or a sign of this is red note, uh, uh, which in Chinese is Xiao Hong Shu, which translates to little red book, of all things. It has become intensely popular among young American TikTok users just in time. You may have heard, and if you haven't heard, please be aware that Trump basically signed a deal with Xi Jinping that will facilitate the purchase, or should I say, the acquisition and takeover of TikTok by Larry Ellison of uh, Oracle, um, one of the richest people in the world, an ardent Zionist who uh, uh, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was bragging that TikTok is going to become a vehicle for Zionist propaganda. It's going to end my use of TikTok, which I've done quite a bit recently. But as Jody Evans said, Red Note users have learned that the US government has been completely lying about China. And the TikTok users are now uh, called TikTok refugees by their Chinese netizen counterparts. Um, and it's an interesting thing. The Chinese users have embraced the newcomers with open arms and a lot of humor. Basically, they kind of look forward to the idea of uh, uh, a genuine people to people interaction across the internet. It's pretty amazing. I like it. I can tell you that. This, I think, is my last slide. And the point here, A, was to give you a graphic image of China as a country. Uh, I was telling you about Guizhou in the central southwest portion of Africa. It's just north and east of Yunnan, as you can see on the bottom, and Guangxi on uh, the southern end of the map, not too far from the megalopolis of Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau on the southeast, and very close to the mega cities of Chongqing and Chengdu uh, in the west central part of the country. Notice the size of Xinjiang in the northwest and Tibet in the uh, in the in the far west. Tibet, by the way, is the source land of the Yangtze River, which really crosses the entire Chinese breadth. Uh, with its wandering, it's about 6,000 miles long. The breadth of China is roughly equivalent to the breadth of the United States, just to give you a sense of it. Um, Now, my paragraph at the top, I'm going to read to you because I think it's important. People to people relations can be the key to changing the official Western hate fest into something positive that can blunt the sharp arrows of fear and hatred emanating from Washington. Guiyang, which is the capital of Guizhou province, was a good starting point. It's a small city of only 6 million residents in a province of about 40 million, nestled in green mountains roughly midway between the southern megacities of Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong, and the huge megalopolises of Chongqing and Chengdu in west central China. Have to bear with me as I pronounce these cities. I've been trying to learn Chinese for about 5 years, and at least I can pronounce the names of the cities and the provinces now, which is progress. So I think I'll end there. For more information, you can go to my blog, dknight.blog. The first thing you see there are images of the covers of my 3 books with Befriending China in the middle. And I can tell you that if you go to that site, you click on any of these books and you discover what I consider a gold mine of information. It certainly has emptied the gold out of my pocket to get it done. I'm going to stop sharing there and basically open the floor for discussion. Hopefully, you haven't fallen asleep. There will be things to say. I noticed that I've used up what might be considered half my time, but that really means that there's plenty of time for you to take over, ask questions, make comments, uh, start a fight, whatever suits you.
Well, I really appreciate that. Been extremely mind bending. It's wonderful. I just like to comment that to people generally, we're as a rule fed kind of critical information or at the best begrudging information on, like you say, some of the amazing things that have happened in China. And plus, again, like so many countries, we're sort of auto focused on ourselves, and as a result, many people don't even seek out. So I think going to your blog and see his other places, and I Danny Haifang, I'm one of his subscribers actually.
Me
But
too. Yeah.
yeah, he interviews some great people. Him and Judge Napolitano and all those characters. They're really
Yeah.
good. And again, I just want to preface it that we're dealing with all human elements. I mean, there is no perfection. Don't think you've got to have to find it in China. It's not here. It's not anywhere. It's yeah, there's problems everywhere, and it's just that
Absolutely.
considering peace is so much cheaper than anything than the alternatives. I keep coming
Absolutely.
back to that. I mean, just look at what we see after 2 years in Gaza. The place looks like the locusts, like concrete eating locusts, have been at it for 2 years. It's just absolutely hideous. So
Yeah.
and that's
It's
the
true.
that's the alternative. Either you get along or you end up doing that to one another, and it's just not acceptable. Anyone have anything they want to ask,
Mike,
Mr. D?
doesn't that involve, I think it involves looking straight at the capitalist system,
It does. Yes.
and a lot of people don't want to do that.
Well, people are having their eyes forced open by the horrifying realities that we see around us. And of course, in a funny way, um, uh, what many people in China say about Donald Trump is true. They call him Comrade Donald and see him as kind of the best player on their team
Oh my God.
because, he's forcing people to. Uh, see a grim reality that we haven't been able to look at. And I would add that, for better or worse, uh, our entire population, the whole country, has been subjected to one big lie after another in a way that, uh, while it has tended to cause cynicism and a kind of a see no evil, hear no evil, uh, shut it out reaction by many people. On the other hand, a lot of people are realizing that they have to take a look at the true picture. Suddenly we have more No Kings protests coming up next week all over the country. I participated in one in Portland back in June,
The
and it was
hellhole.
it was amazing. Anyway, Ron also has a hand up.
Right.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could comment on this whole, the relationship with China and Taiwan and the U.S. role in that, and the strategic ambiguity thing that we hear about. We heard, I think, more about that during the Biden administration, but it could come up again.
It's coming up again. And it's interesting. Just yesterday, there was a commentary. Uh, Once again, it was a YouTube commentary that highlighted that the switch from strategic ambiguity started to happen when the semiconductor business in Taiwan surged far ahead of the US production of semiconductors. It wasn't long after that Nancy Pelosi made a trip over there and brought back a substantial fraction of the Taiwanese semiconductor business and set it up in Arizona. People may have heard about that. Uh, I can also add that on my first trip back in the fall of 2023, our traveling companions included a New Jersey couple, Chinese, who had lived in Taiwan. Their families migrated along with Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang after uh, the communist revolution was victorious back in 1949, and they made a point of saying, yeah, this effort of the United States to get Taiwan independence is going to go nowhere. And I found so little difference among Taiwanese and Chinese that despite the effort of the United States to foment war, the Chinese mainland Chinese position is to wait it out. They're prepared to defend themselves and China, of which Taiwan is a province, but they've been increasing business with Taiwan, and most of the Taiwanese business people want that, and they don't want a war with China, even supported by the United States. They don't want to be Ukraine. Let's put it that way. Teresa has her hand up.
Okay, audio. It's not a question so much, but it was a memory. Is I think in 22 and 23, I got the transcripts and then I listened to the report to Congress, or the presentation to Congress, of the Comandante of Southcom, the Southern Command. And my takeaway from that was it was like China, China, China all the time. And but all of the things that they were, maneuvering boats or proposing this and saying that they had to do that was to counteract in Latin America, cut off transactions and commerce, etc., with China. It was like the entire focus of Southcom was China.
Yeah.
And I have to
Yes.
say that I did not pay attention or listen in 24, and I kind of discount, maybe we ought not to, but discount the current military. That's probably not the right thing to say, but it's anyway, comment more than a question.
It's a very interesting comment, but it certainly highlights a very, very significant question. Is the United States capable of stopping the tide of history in which trade among countries around the world has moved to China, at least on an equal basis with the United States? And what's wrong with that? The real question of what's wrong is that for US business and geopolitics, being the top dog is more important than anything. It's more important than peace, obviously.
Right.
And it is so much less important than peace that we need to question, what can we do to change that? Right now, we see, for example, that even before the slaughter has ended in Gaza, or the debacle in Ukraine has finished, the United States is already uh, shooting down small boats in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela, preparing for war against Venezuela. It seems crystal clear that it's not drug traffickers that concern them there, but oil. The U.S. foreign policy has been defined by the interests of the big energy companies for several generations. My lifetime is about 3 generations so far. And during that entire period, it seems like every war has had something to do with oil. And of course, you can see that in the Middle East, both Biden and Trump have been willing to sponsor genocide against the indigenous population of Palestine to fortify their guardian, their watchdog on the rich oil region of the Middle East. And they seem to be at least open to the idea of a global war focused on Iran in order to try and take over Iran's oil resources, and thereby change the global balance of power. Meanwhile, it's well known that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the entire world inside its border or off its coast. And Trump is on record as openly declaring, we want that oil, and he also is extremely upset that the effort by the U.S. to isolate Venezuela was essentially frustrated by business between China and Russia and Venezuela. China, Russia, and Iran all teamed up to help Venezuela survive the strangulation effort of the U.S. And I got to tell you, I really like the beachscape that you have behind you, Teresa. And it reminds me that it's much nicer to have a nice beach than it is to have war off the coast of Venezuela. And one last comment is that through BRICS and through the Belt and Road Initiative, China has already succeeded dramatically in becoming a larger trading partner with several of the Latin American countries, even than the United States. This includes Brazil, of course, the largest country there. It also includes Venezuela. Interestingly, the Chinese have built the largest port in Latin America off the coast of Peru, that they are doubling down by creating a tunnel-based corridor that links the Pacific coast with the Atlantic coast in South America, dramatically altering the whole pattern of trade in South America. And by the way, it came on the heels of Trump's huffing and puffing about the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal will really decrease in relevance in the face of this new strategic trade route through the heart of South America. And it's interesting to note that Mexico is adding its own Pacific Atlantic corridor on a land route. And Mexico, by the way, is now manufacturing and selling more electric cars than the United States, thanks to collaboration with China. So it's really not a very good idea, in my humble opinion, for Trump and his buddy Marco Rubio to try and push history back 100 years in Latin America. It's not going to happen. And I think that we can be not merely hopeful, but confident that because China emphasizes peace and trade, we can stop the war machine. And by the way, it'll be the first time in my lifetime that we will actually have stopped that war machine.
I love that one. That's great. Yeah, the one thing I have to come back to is they tend to constantly talk about win-win operations rather than this jockeying, which, I guess because we're so sports fixated, or maybe that's a result of the fact that we've been this who's on top mentality for a couple hundred years now, that it's something we've really got to dwell on. And like I say, people are just looking at perhaps the conflict possibilities rather than looking at what you've been bringing out, all these fascinating possibilities and realities. So I just find it fascinating, and we do have to keep on keeping on, because it's not going to happen by itself. Unfortunately, there are too many people that are not out there looking at what the world's going on, not tuning into like Danny Haifong or buying Dee Knight's books or that. And we've got to, anywhere we can, like I just like to do letters to the editor myself, and they didn't print this one that I sent to our local paper. It was the wannabe pirate idea, that the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Because that's what, that funny movie with Captain Jack Sparrow. Well, I put him in the little letter, and I guess the editor thought it was just a little too exotic. He couldn't quite follow it, so he didn't print it. But I might redo it. but the idea is that that's kind of what it's looking like. You got these pirates, and they're not even following the pirates' rules, because the whole idea is you don't just sink the ship with the booty and the fair maidens and the gold doubloons. You board the ship, shot across the bow, board the ship, get ransom or whatever you do, and then off you go to your pirate hideout. But so he's violating even the piratical code.
It's very important, I think, that you bring this up, including the frustration at having your letter to the editor uh, rejected. It's good to be talking to people who can share some of our memories with the 1960s and recall that it took quite a while before we were able to break through, even though it was pretty crystal clear at the time of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution in 1964 that the whole damn thing was a lie and it was going to get us into big trouble. And it did, and it took us really only about 3 years from that time for a substantial sea change in public opinion to take place and people to realize that the US was going to lose in Vietnam. It still took another 7 years for that to happen, but we need to be confident and persistent in the effort to make peace, realizing that the tide of history is on our side, even though we're looking at a fascist effort to stop that. We're going to win just because the other side, no matter how brutal and how brazen it is not going to be able to sustain this crazy fascist nightmare that they're trying to impose on us. And we need also, I think, to think about the ways of stimulating our grandkids and others really in the younger generations, but across the board, to think of practical and creative ways to do people to people peacemaking. I personally was very lucky to be able to come up with the money to travel to China to see for myself. But I'm ready to tell you that there are things that can be done. I haven't been able yet to put in the chat the information about how people can apply for scholarships to go to university in China. It's a very real possibility. Also, through Friends of Socialist China, we will be doing delegation tours that people can get on and go and see for ourselves what's going on over there. It's a big factor. One of the things that I was actually invited to do a column in Global Times, which is a leading Chinese paper, about the change in American attitudes about Xinjiang. You may or may not have noticed, but there's not nearly as much denunciation. Not very, very seldom do you see people talking about genocide in Xinjiang. It's a little embarrassing for the official media and government. They're trying to hide or deny an obvious genocide in Palestine, and it's so much bloodier than anything that happened in China, in Xinjiang, or anywhere else, that they've just stopped talking about it. But part of that was that people like myself and others have managed to see for themselves and put the reality out there for others to learn. So basically, I'm concluding with an invitation to you and all of us to, first of all, don't lose the faith. We are able to penetrate and overcome this, and we can find ways to do it. The truth will come out, and we can help that.
It sounds like an awfully good way to conclude things. Just-
I want also to thank people for coming. And I am also very grateful that this conversation has been recorded and we can package it and get it around. I hope that you'll share it with the other members of the group who were not able to come. I know that Mike Wong wants to get his hands on it and spread it around. I look forward to seeing it. You notice I've got a Patreon site. I'll try and make sure that people can see it. And I also want you to know that it really does feel very homey for me to be hanging out with you in San Mateo. I love the Bay Area, and you better look out. I might come out there and say hello on your doorstep. I really do
We
appreciate
got
it.
some room here. You come on.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You'd
And
be
I
more
very
than welcome.
and I appreciate the work that you're doing. It's us working together that's going to change this thing.
Amen. It's wonderful.
Bravo.
If anybody else has any final remarks, because it's past 11 p.m. where Dee lives, so we don't keep. All right. Well, with that, I want to really, really thank you. And yes, I'm so glad. I think people will not be disappointed. We'll get this up on our website as soon as we can, and it'll be obviously made available to anyone who does want to have a look at it. And with that, I want to really thank you, Dee, for you know extending the experience for all of us, because not that many of us are going to be able to do what you have done, see it for yourself, and so we have to rely on reliable people to do the reporting. And so you and Danny Haifong and Mike Wong and everybody else who's in the good fight, I really appreciate all your efforts, and I want to thank you.
Thank
I
you.
thank you too, and I very much look forward to uh, getting the link so that I can see this again. Obviously, I'll find problems with what I said, but on the whole, this was really a wonderful experience, and I thank you very much.
Excellent.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
then.
Thank you, everyone. Give them a little applause here. Here we go. Where's that applause
Bye.
thing?
Thanks
There's
again.
real applause too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.